it's an interesting project. It's very dynamic. You can have it in your kitchen and it doesn't even smell, unlike a regular compost bin, which it's a bit cathartic too, right? You can put stuff in there and it is never going to be able to be put back together, right? Why are my worms freaking trying to escape or whatever? Like, maybe this is going to be helpful to you too. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Hardcore Herbalist. I'm Jen, and thanks for checking out my YouTube video. So I wanted to spend some time today talking about one of my passions, which is urban sustainability. To me, it means living in a way that reduces or minimizes your carbon footprint while living inside of an urban environment, which I do. One of the things that always used to kind of vex me a little bit is the fact that in order to eat healthy, you wind up producing a fair amount of waste. Either you buy your foods pre-chopped up at the store, in which case you're throwing out a lot of plastic, or you grow your vegetables, or you buy them whole at the store with rinds and peels, etc., and then you wind up throwing away that organic matter. I looked into different methods for a while. I was renting space in a local community garden where I was gardening in the earth, in the ground, and they had a compost bin there, so I would gather all my organic waste every week or every few days in all these smelly giant containers, and I would put them in my car and hopefully remember to bring them into the garden and put them in the compost bin. And I just wanted something that was local, so that when I eat my own food in my own house, I don't have to take my compost in a car and drive somewhere to take care of it. So finally I met a woman at a local farmer's market who sells worms that I have. And so over the course of the last three years, I've met some other people. They've given me some advice. I've learned on my own the hard way. Be quiet for a second. You can hear the sound that they make. I feel like they make a sound that sounds like, you hear it? They don't like light, so they do slither downward when the light comes. Okay, so here's the worm bin again. And I'm going to just take the lid off. The reason I have rocks in my worm garden is that they're lava rocks, and they're from my fish garden, which I'm not doing a video about right now. But the problem was, yours truly made another mistake and had to learn a lesson the hard way when I planted mint in my fish garden. And the mint started taking over in a major way, and there's actually still mint roots all throughout my fish garden. In the worm garden, the worms are going to eat all of those mint roots, and hopefully when the rocks have gone through the entire worm cycle, what we've got going on here, then they're not going to spread mint back into my fish garden, which I'm trying to get it out of. So that's the story. You can get rid of your own organic waste without having to transport it anywhere. You're basically creating a really nutritious fertilizer, because the worm compost is a very good fertilizer. And it's actually so benign or so harmless to the plants that, check it out, this is some worm compost that I took out of my worm tower last week and just put into this clay pot. I was about ready to go dump it into some of my other plants to give them nutrition. And then lo and behold, looks like a seed was still in here, and over the course of the week, just using the water that was the moisture in here, it looks like another new plant has started to grow. You can basically grow plants straight into worm compost. This is straight worm poop. It doesn't smell at all. It doesn't feel gross. It actually feels quite spongy. It's not the same as dirt. So there's the top shelf. So, but here you can see things are starting to get more digested. Here is the worms. They kind of turn everything moist and soggy, like the dirt under the leaves in the forest is what it feels like. But in the end, I really enjoy having worms. I really like it, and it's unlike a regular compost bin, which kind of stinks to high heaven. It gets really hot, like the kind of hot that that only bacteria is happy in, right? That's not what happens here. In fact, this is a pretty mellow worm environment. Probably it's about 80, 90 degrees, 70, 80 degrees all year long. The worms don't like to be too hot. I couldn't put them outside right now because it's over 100 degrees outside. Some plants that I have can live out there, but not my worms. So this bin is a pretty good solution, and it allows the worms to crawl up. Each one of these bins, 7 of them is how many I have, has a mesh underlining. Can you see this mesh right here? You can see actually some shredded paper in there, because like I said, the worms eat shredded paper. So when the worms are done eating down here, they can slither up to here, and then when they're done eating this food, they slither up here, up here, up here. There's the least digested food up at the top, and the most digested poop at the bottom, right? So, and then gradually, the bin on the bottom becomes the bin on the top, and the bin on the second becomes the bin on the bottom, and everything travels downward on the worm tower, and the worms are constantly traveling upward. Very cool. Do you want to And then look in here, this is, you can see there's worms right on the top. Here's a piece of paper. Here's some more like the palm tree leaves, rocks. And then here you can feel the sponginess of like, this is like pretty much pure worm poop. Cool. Do you want to hear about the biggest mistake I ever made with my worm tower? Things can go wrong, especially if you don't know the right way to feed your worms. You can end up with a situation like I did the first time I got my really nice worm tower. The situation was that I had a lot of carrot pulp because I had made carrot juice, and I had like a giant container, maybe this big or maybe this big, of carrot pulp. And I thought, I just bought 2 pounds of worms. This is probably 3 pounds of carrot pulp. I would like to spread the carrot pulp around. What wound up happening was the worms didn't have a chance to eat all of the carrot pulp before the carrot pulp started to rot. And when organic material starts to rot, guess what happens? The same thing that happens in the compost pile in some people's gardens, which is it gets really hot. It gets too hot for the worms. So the next day, after I just spread the carrot pulp around, mixed it in, made sure everything was nice and even, I come out and there's worms all over the floor. They're like slithering away, trying to get as far away from the worm tower as possible. Basically, it was horrifying. There was like dried up worms on the floor. Worms are just kind of just trying to get away, just trying to put as much distance between themselves and the worm tower. And I felt terrible because that was super not my intention. I was trying to do it the right way, and I did it the absolute wrong way. So, hey, how are you going to learn unless you learn the hard way? I don't know. I don't know any other way to learn. Anyway, what I'm going to be telling you is that when you feed your worms, specifically when you feed them wet material, like this chewed up watermelon rinds, is you're going to put it in a little area. Dig a hole, put it in an area. The worms will come and eat it from the outside in. and you go on a different area, dig a hole, put the food in, and then the worms will come there. The worms can sniff out the good food, and they'll come for it. And a good rule that I don't always abide by is to put the new stuff only in the top bin. Sometimes I put the food in the top and the second bin down. Anyway, it's your worm bin. You do it how you like. The kind of worms that I have are called red wigglers, and they are an earthworm variety, and they don't mind being handled. They're great at this job, and they don't mind being handled by humans, and so it's ideal for, it's a match made in heaven. One other great thing about these worms is that they're able to eat half of their body weight a day of food. So if you have, I'm not sure exactly how much each worm weighs, and it varies, right? But say you have a pound of worms. Well, that pound of worms, which I've seen it before, it's like a roiling mass like about this big, can eat a half a pound of food a day. If you have 5 pounds of worms, which I might have, I'm not sure, they're not all in one place in here, then I bet you my worms can eat 2.5 pounds of food a day. So it actually is pretty dynamic and pretty dramatic, and I hope. What? It almost looks completely like dirt. Another cool thing that happens is that it compresses. So it might start out like a whole bunch of organic material, and then it gets like all the way down. Here is a good amount of just pure compost. You can tell that this is just pure worm compost. And if I wanted, I could just sift this out right now and just start throwing it into my plants to give them extra nutrition. See. So one other thing that I want to say is that worms eat paper and cardboard and egg cartons. If you don't know somebody that's got chickens, they also eat like dried sticks. I wouldn't put weeds in there. If you have weeds in your garden, don't put those in your worm bin, but that's also the rule with compost too. Don't put weed, if you don't want it to keep growing, because compost is not going to completely kill everything, then throw it away. That's the rule of weeds. And I guess you're supposed to hang on to your taxes for at least 7 years, but I have had my worms eat my entire 2007 tax return. So it's a bit cathartic too, right? You can put stuff in there and it is never going to be able to be put back together, right? So like I explained, when we chopped up the watermelon, you might want to chop up some of your paper and then toss it in there. Or you don't have to chop it up and the worms will work it out anyway. But of course, they like to eat smaller things. They have tinier mouths. So that if you chop stuff up, there's a way better chance that your worms will eat it faster. Okay. Oh, one other thing. If you're talking about feeding worms, yes, the best way is to go ahead and chew it up the food with a blender. That's the best way to get bite-sized morsels. But if you can't deal with that, another thing you can do is toss your vegetables and your vegetable scraps into the freezer and let them freeze. Take out the frozen banana, frozen old bananas or whatever it was that you put in there. Let it warm back up to room temperature. Don't freeze the freaking worms, right? Just let it sit on the counter in a bowl and for the rest of the day until it warms up to room temperature. And then when it's just about disgusting, right? Then you go ahead and you feed it to your worms. Don't give them hot food. Don't give them cold food. Think about it. If you wouldn't want your skin, like something that was that temperature to touch your skin, you don't want it to touch your worms, okay? That's one, maybe you'll take my advice and learn these lessons the easy way by listening to me, or maybe you'll make the same mistakes I did and learn the hard way. But either way, it's fine. It's just sometimes it helps to hear what somebody else's experiences are. If you're in the middle of like, why are my worms freaking trying to escape or whatever, like maybe this is going to be helpful to you too. So bottom, and here is the wicked bottom, which is where, some worms, they'll just fall through the cracks, or they'll slither down instead of up. So we'll just go ahead and scrape this out into a container. And if I can separate, it's like a slanted table. And so in theory, the worms are able to crawl up the sides and back in. I don't know. One at a time. See how it's nice and clean now? All right, so thanks so much again for joining me. My hands are nice and dirty from this experience. I just wanted to let you know again the names of the worms. It's called red wigglers, and this is what they call a worm farm. The company that I bought it from is called Uncle Jim's. So in case you wanted to check that out. And thanks so much for checking out the Hardcore Herbalist today. I hope that this has encouraged you to give a shot at worm composting, or at least to know that it's a possibility if you live in an urban environment for you to compost virtually all of your food scraps, and just with a little bit of effort and a cool bunch of worms. All right, thanks so much again for joining me this week, and look forward to doing another video next week with the Hardcore Herbalist. Take care, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to this channel, and share with your friends. All that's free. It'd be great if you would do it. I'd appreciate it too. Thanks again. Have a great day. Really quite a dynamic thing. You would be like, really? Worms? They're not that exciting, but they actually are. And it doesn't smell, and it's really not very gross, as long as you realize that worms aren't gross. What's happening is they kind of like hang out in the corner and mate and make new baby worms. Look at all of those worms. Pretty fascinating. But one cool thing about it is that the worms like to hang out inside and have sex and make worm poop. So, you know, leave them alone in there. Working on it, these worms. If there's any things that they can go inside of and snuggle up and have sex inside of it, they will take that chance. So